Are you scared to timber harvest, thinking that it might decrease the amount of deer on your property? Well, you're going to find out that that is not even close to true this week on Landbeat. All right, guys, we're standing in a special place on this property. We had a logging operation come through May of 2024. And what was important about that is we're implementing a large timber harvest plan. That's the first step into implementing a greater habitat management plan. But we took overstory trees through May all the way in through September. But what's really neat about this is prior to that timber harvest operation, the landowner had hired a drone service. Jack Hudson of Missouri Deer Drone Recovery had come in and done an evaluation. And that was prior to the logging operation in January of 2024, so a winter survey. And what's happened now is we've had a timber operation, and now it is March of 2025, and another survey completed. We're looking at trying to find a big sample size of, are we seeing fluctuations in deer activity, usage across the property? But what we found was great evidence to support the value of doing a timber harvest, and that it encourages more deer activity on your property as opposed to others' property. And we've got the evidence, and we want to share that with you today. All right, guys, so I'm going to be reading off my phone some of the numbers that we have to share. But in this property, essentially 400 acres were surveyed, and a portion of a neighboring property was surveyed in addition to that survey. So we have cooperation from those folks to be able to analyze both years. But this client in 2024 on this survey had 157 deer on the surveyed acres. 34 of those were bucks. And what's interesting about that is the distribution of those deer across the surveyed acres. 90 of those deer were on the client's property and 60 were on the neighbors, okay? That was in January of 2024. Then we have a logging operation, May through September. Obviously, areas were cut intensively. This actually is going to be the site of a future power line, so all the marketable timber was taken out of there, but we have other areas that were cut heavy, areas that were future bedding thickets that took the value out. And so we have many areas across this entire 360 acres that look and resemble this. A lot of structure on the ground. We only had portions of growing season that allowed vegetation to grow back. So a lot of what you're going to see in the numbers and increase from year to year, 2024 survey to 2025, is based on the fact that there's structure on the ground that deer are strongly relating to cover. So in 2025, we had a very similar number of deer. We had 167. The year prior was 157. We had 45 bucks on the property. But here's where it gets really interesting, okay? So we don't have this dramatic change. We went from 34 bucks to 45, but it's the distribution of those 157 to 167, 24 to 25 that really is interesting. So in 2024, 90 were on this block that got timbered, 60 on a neighboring block. This year, 137 were on the property that got timbered, and only 30 on the property that did not get timbered, right? And so we have an immense change, not on the numbers or the quantity of deer, but in the distribution and the functionality of this property post-timber harvest. Certainly, there were still deer on here prior to it, but what we saw was a shift in a selection or the deer choosing to relate to the cover, the debris on the ground as added structure, security. And I think that's a great point to make of oftentimes people think that this is going to ruin deer habitat or that's going to temporarily really make them move out from the air and they're going to go cross country or across the county, where in reality, year to year, we saw an increase in a selection of deer choosing this quality of habitat and structure loads to relate to from a security standpoint. So we wanted to share that information with you because I think there's a lot of value to see just how good a timber harvest can be, and not to be afraid to cut hard because it's only going to increase and serve the recreational minded deer hunter. You're gonna have more influence on the neighborhood deer. They're gonna spend more time on your property. 2024 to 2025 data shows that very clearly, and the maps and that distribution of the cover is really awesome. Where they essentially timbered the hardest is where we found in 25 a majority of those deer concentrated. And this is where it gets even better, is the work is not done yet. We shoot a lot of other videos talking about the follow-up management post-timber harvest, but we still have some additional TSI work to do. We have invasive species work to do. We have prescribed fires to continue to roll through this property. And so in the years to come, those numbers are only likely to get better, right? Because we're going to further improve the quality of the habitat, and more surveys are going to get done to further showcase the value of the work that's being done. But it doesn't start and stop with the harvest. It starts with the harvest, and we have additional work to continue to progress it and offer higher quality value of not only forage, but cover in a relatively dominated timber property here in the Midwest. But guys, we're hoping that you take this information and allow you to provide a little bit more confidence into moving forward and doing more bigger scale operations where you're addressing the canopy and doing follow-up work. But hopefully that helps you guys to get out there and do more habitat minded work.